Today we are going to be talking about Bayes' theorem, which actually is one of the most important rules or theories in machine learning and probability theory. So, what is Bayes' theorem and how does it derive? How do we derive it? To understand Bayes' theorem, I'm sure you've taken the previous class before this one, and that should be lesson 9. Yeah, lesson 9. So where we derive the sum rule, the product rule, we also discuss marginal probability, conditional probability, and joint probability. So you should actually know all these things for you to be able to move on to Bayes' theory. Although we are going to take some time to review them, so sit tight and we are going to get everything clear. I'd also like to remind you to subscribe to my channel if you would not subscribe by clicking on the subscribe button below. So let's get to the screen and then we'll be writing and also explaining what is going on. So a quick recap of the conditional probability. Conditional probability is probability of an event given a previous event that has happened. So we write conditional probability in this way. So I'm going to take a pen as usual. So we write conditional probability of P, X, and Y. This means conditional probability of X given Y. We also have the joint probability is given like this. Joint probabilities. This means the joint probability of X and Y. And then we have probability of marginal probability of X. So these are how the tree goes. Now the sum rule is a rule that helps us find the marginal probability. So let's just write it out. Maybe let me take out part of this line. Okay. So the sum rule helps us find marginal probability. The product rule helps us find joint probability, and the Bayes theorem helps us find conditional probability. So let's start with the sum rule. Sum rule says that the probability of X is the joint probability of X and Y, the sum of, I've messed it up. So sum rule says that the marginal probability of X is the sum of all the joint probability of X and Y over Y. The product rule says that I'm mixing everything up. So okay, let me write the product rule here. The product rule says that the joint probability of X and Y is equal to the conditional probability of Y given X times the marginal probability of Y. Yeah, I think I'm getting it. Let's see. The product rule says that the joint probability of X and Y is the conditional probability of Y given X times the marginal probability of X. I think so. Let's see. So sometimes it can be a bit confusing. So yeah, so it's actually X. Okay, so for now I'm simply going to write it a bit clear. Good. So this is what now Bayes' rule now helps us to find conditional probability. For us to find conditional probability, there's something we need to understand called the rule of symmetry, or the symmetry property of joint probability. So the symmetry property of joint probability says that you can actually interchange Y and X, and you have something like probability of X given Y times the probability of Y. So basically it's the same thing. Well, these two times are basically the same thing, right? So what we'll simply do, because Bayes' theorem actually derived from the product rule, so we simply equate the two. So we simply say that P of Y given X times P of X, that is this first term here, equals P of X given Y times P of Y. So basically, this is product rule. We've not actually changed anything. Okay, so we can now either find this or this by making it the subject of the formula. If I'm to use the expression from high school, so we can simply find the conditional probability of X given Y. So that this term is equal to the conditional probability of Y given X, that is this expression here, times marginal probability of X all over this, the marginal probability of Y. So this is Bayes' theorem, sometimes is called Bayes' rule. So keep it in mind. So this is Bayes' theorem, and it's really very important. One thing I'd like to advise you, learn how to prove it the same way I did just now, how to prove Bayes' theorem. Let's go down a bit. So the proof in my website is a bit not very as clear as I proved it in this video. So let's summarize. What have we learned so far? First, you understand the terms conditional probability, marginal probability, and joint probability. You also now know of the sum rule that helps us find marginal probability. The sum rule helps us find marginal probability. The product rule helps us find joint probability, and Bayes' theorem helps us find conditional probability. In the next class, we'll now see how we can apply all these things we've learned to solve the probability problem. I'd like to thank you for viewing, and we'll see you in the next class.